Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to this edition of PCA 3 at 3. Today we've got a great guest in Jessica Hutson, and she's a PCA board member, and she and her husband own Just For Him in Missouri. And they've got a great store that's there, and they've been doing it for quite a while. And so this topic today that we're going to address stems from a conversation that Jessica and I had a little while ago, and she talked about sort of the approach that they have for their store and the various different things that they offer there, apart from just a premium tobacco category. And thought it was really interesting. And there were a lot of folks that were in the room at the time that kind of had some follow-up questions. So I thought, when the time presents itself, I think this would be a good topic to bring up and get her insights on to kind of how they've approached this and diversifying their product offerings and maybe some insights that others might be able to glean from this. And so before we get into that, just want to say very big heartfelt. I really hope that everybody out there is still staying safe. I know we're in the midst of a pandemic, and I know that we're also in the midst of a lot of other issues that are coming up. And I've seen some of our retail stores that have had to go in and protect themselves. So I just want to wish everybody from the absolute bottom of my heart, please stay safe. Hope everybody is doing well and getting through everything else. And, obviously keep your loved ones close, because that's obviously what's most important. And so please be safe out there, and I hope to be able to kind of see and talk to as many people as soon as possible once we can kind of get through this. I feel like all of us need to get some kind of badge or a special sort of tattoo or something that may at the end of all of this that says I survived 2020, because I don't think anybody could have possibly imagined everything that was going to happen this year. And we're not even halfway over, so the second half, I think, has got to be better than the first half. So on that note, we're excited to talk a little bit about kind of getting back to business as usual now with Jessica, and a little bit more about, as we take a look at the second half of this year and being able to reopen businesses, how potentially looking at diversifying some of your product offerings in your store could help boost some revenues and boost some sales for you and add some additional streams of revenue. So on that note, I'm going to bring up Jessica Hutson, Just For Him, and Aaron Holland from PCA is going to join us for this conversation too. Good afternoon to both of you. Welcome, and I hope you guys are both doing well. How is everyone?
Good, thanks, Scott.
Jessica, you've got a great store. It's in Springfield, Missouri. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Great. I think you had a pretty interesting thing that kind of happened there when the lockdowns kind of all started happening. It was pretty interesting situation that happened in Missouri, particularly where you were at. It almost ended up as if you were running some sort of speakeasy there for a little bit. I kind of wanted people to hear your story just because I think it's an interesting one, but also it's a pretty good cautionary tale as well as a good case study for those that are out there on sort of enlisting, kind of our help and others' help when you're faced with politicians and public policy makers that don't quite understand what they're doing and how to address that type of situation. So could you kind of give a little bit of background onto kind of what happened when this all went down, how it impacted you, and then kind of what the solution ended up being?
Yeah, we were lucky enough, if you can say that, in that we've been enough rounds with our local city that at least we know people and we've kind of been through the ringer on this stuff before. But tobacco was considered non-essential in Springfield in the very beginning. We actually were able to do curbside at our store because we also have a grooming items selection, which is soaps, shampoos, beard oils, shaved products, things like that. Those are considered essential. So in the beginning, we were actually almost accidentally considered essential. And then as we moved on, however, tobacco was specifically labeled not legal to sell in our city. So it became a whole new adventure of trying to combat the illegal items versus the essential items and how we handle that. But it really, at the end, what got us through what would have otherwise closed us down was having another product line.
Wow, that's crazy. So how did that was what you had reached out to us at the time, and we're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And I think you said that I think this was you, that you had pre-existing relationships with some of the like city council members or mayor or somebody else that you were able to reach out to kind of get this addressed and fixed. But there was like a 48-hour period where you were essentially running a black market store, for lack of a better term, right?
Yes. They actually told us that we could take orders and ship them, but we could not deliver by hand and we could not deliver curbside. anything that was tobacco. Oddly, we could do that with soap. So, for example, if I had somebody who came in and wanted a bar of soap and a cigar, I could sell them the soap, and then I had to take the cigar back and I had to ship it to them because it wasn't legal to sell inside of our city. So yeah, it was an adventure. We did use everything we'd learned during a smoking ban. So we mobilized our social media was the biggest thing. It was send in hundreds of calls as well as talking to everybody in city council, reminding them, taking pictures of, showing them our store is X% essential items. So you can't close us down if you're going to leave all of these other stores open.
Yeah, that's kind of what's weird is that we, even here in Northern Virginia, it was a little weird at the beginning because there are some stores that ended up kind of having, so there was I'm actually broadcasting live from my wife's store today, right? And so she would have to go to this one particular store to get supplies for running her store. And they ended up having dry goods like flowers and other things. And they would put that right up front and just basically like a poker table or folding table, right? And it's right up there as soon as you walk in, because I think that helped them maintain that status, right? And be able to stay open. And then that kind of passed, and then it was all kind of phased in and everything a little bit later. But you have always been selling these products. And so it's a little interesting that they would come down and say, here's no tobacco, but the other part of this is, and kind of how that all figured out, how did that ultimately get resolved? I mean, was the campaign, the letter to the mayor and
it was an open letter to city council. So we reached out personally to everyone. We reached out to the city manager, the city's lawyer, the person who is directly in charge of the COVID response, the mayor, and every single city council person. We reached out to local media. We called everybody. We reached out to our customers and said, here's the contact information. You should start calling. Just call until we get a response back. And that's what happened. Within about 24 hours, we had responses from a number of people who otherwise weren't talking to us. And within 48 hours, they came out and basically said, so we're not going to change the law, but we're also not going to close them down. We'll let them operate as usual.
Weird. So it was just sort of a wink, wink, nod, nod.
It was a very loud wink, wink. They actually did have to pretty much go on the news and say, yes, that's what it said. Yes, that's what we said. But after thinking about it, maybe it wasn't a great idea and we won't enforce it. So for us, it was the same thing that happened in the smoking ban. It's be loud, be aggressive, and just use all the facts that you have. Trying not to get too emotional, which is not always easy in this, but reaching out to every single person with the facts and help us figure this out. Ask them to be on your side. And a whole lot of press later, it worked for us.
Good. Yeah. That's one of the things, we've emphasized over the last several conversations we've had with folks is the importance of sort of a widespread ground game involving customers and others in order to amplify that message. So another good case study into how that actually works in a real world setting for something. And I wish that the rest of these bad policies that they would write, that they would turn around and just say, hey, you know what? This was a very bad idea. We're going to just go ahead and cross it off the list for you. I wish that they would be that sort of responsive and understanding in a lot of these other endeavors in which we're fighting. So, but this brings up a really interesting point about, you had a lot of these other products that you were able to sell even during this time frame to where they were still trying to figure stuff out. And it underscores a lot of what we talked about. This was several months ago when you were talking about this, and I thought it was really interesting. And I kind of asked a few follow-up questions at the time, but I know that there were others that asked you as well about, you said, we sell a lot of different products in our store. That's not necessarily just cigars. And, I think that as a lot of stores are opening up, well, we've got several months now of people that have lost revenue opening up and looking at things. And I thought it would be a really interesting idea to kind of talk to you about how the sort of the genesis and nature of your decision to go and offer these products and kind of how you decided what exactly you were going to offer and how that really benefits your store. Just see if it might be spur some ideas for folks as they're looking into maybe doing something like this as they head through the rest of this year to try to capture more revenue into their stores based upon obviously the losses for the last couple of months. So let's walk through, explain what Just For Him is all about for anybody that doesn't know your store. What is Just For Him? Obviously, you've got the premium cigar side of it, but give us paint us a word picture, if you will, about your store there.
Yeah, Just For Him is essentially two things. We are a men's gift store and tobacco shop. So our tobacco shop is a tobacco shop and lounge, pipes and cigars mostly. And then our gift shop is what we consider anything that you might buy either for yourself or the man in your life. It is all of our accessories, but it is also hats and grooming items and card games and alcohol accessories, things like that. So we sell steins, we sell shirt stays, we sell that sort of stuff. The biggest item really at this point is going to be the grooming supplies.
Interesting. And so when you were looking at that, now when you opened your store, was it with that in mind that it was going to be both, or did that grow out of kind of the customer needs and things like that?
Our store has actually changed a number of times. So we've kind of gone back and forth as different demand and different cultural things have happened. When the store was first opened, it was 31 years ago, and it was a gift store. It actually wasn't a tobacco store at all. We didn't own it at that point, but the couple that owned it, the gentleman was a pipe smoker. So he brought in 3 pipe tobaccos, and he would smoke his pipe in the back of the store with his tobacco and his friends. And then when Christian and I moved to Springfield about 20 years ago, we started coming in, and at that point they had some cigars also. And this was where we bought our cigars. So when Christian started managing the store, the cigar section started growing and growing. And by the time that we were ready to buy the store, which was 11 years ago, it was no longer known as a gift store with some pipe tobacco. It was a cigar store with a few gifts. It had just completely flip-flopped over. So after we bought it, we started to look through and realized that most of the gifts at that time were things that women were buying for men and that men were putting in the closet somewhere. Was pretty much it was tchotchkes for your desk. It was knickknacks, mostly. So we went through and got rid of almost everything. At that time, there were 3 soaps for sale. There were 7 hats for sale. We decided to take the gifts in the same way that we've always taken cigars, in the way that any tobacco place is going to take a fine cigar. We learned what we could about items, and then we went to just a few lines, but we did them well, and we educated all of our employees on them. So instead of having 3 of everything, we now have a huge amount of shave items. And we have somebody on staff who knows shave items inside out and goes to shave meetups, and that's her job. She is on social media learning the stuff. She's talking to the manufacturers. She is getting stuff custom made for us. And so now, as much as we call ourselves a gift store, it is probably more of things that men buy for themselves. We've found a lot more success in going to, one, there's a lot more crossover between our tobacco and our gifts when we can feed people from one side to the other. Yeah. So our regular cigar smokers didn't ever go into the gift side before. Now they're going back and forth. And our regular gift buyers know that we have the tobacco. And so every once in a while they'll be like, you know what, I've always wanted to try. Or my father-in-law smokes and I should go get him something. So we have a lot more crossover. Also, by doing the shave items, we have found that we get the same thing you get with cigars, and people return. They have to come back to buy more soap. They have to come back to buy more razors. Yeah. So the repeat customers are a great thing for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's I like that story about kind of how that evolved there. I got a really interesting question now, as far as, your staff fully trained. That's pretty difficult because, I mean, there's training staff just to even understand premium cigars and pipe tobacco is difficult enough. But then you're getting into some more specialized things here that are not necessarily related. And so do you you said they have that one person that focuses solely like on the shaving or grooming stuff. Do you
Right.
have that sort of compartmentalized between employees for various areas, or do you have some employees that are trained across everything and know everything?
Every employee has to have what I would consider a good level of knowledge in everything. So we've got 5 full-time employees that aren't family, and every one of them has to have a good knowledge of everything we sell. That said, everybody has at least one specialty.
Gotcha.
So there is, for beard oils, I have more than one person who knows the beard oils. But for the entire gift side as a whole, I do have one person who's in charge. And it is part of her responsibility to make sure everybody else knows when new things are coming in, knows when we're having an event, knows why is this new thing so special, what are we pushing, what's going out, what are the new brands that we're looking at.
Interesting. You mentioned events, and I didn't even. Do you do cross events? Do you have like a beard oil and cigar event? Do you have like a shave and smoke?
Yeah, absolutely. We participate in beard competitions where we go as both shops, because a lot of the beard competition people are also smokers. So we definitely cross chain at the beard competition events. As far as the events that we have in-house, they cross only by accident. So we have shave meetups here on a fairly regular basis. Most of them will end up smoking, but we don't have them sponsored by a cigar. We just sell them stuff as they come in and let them go. So
yeah, that's good. That's the point, right? Making sure that they're there so that you can. Yeah, absolutely. Erin, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
I kind of do. I mean, going back to, you had that. Luckily, it was just a very short period of time where you had to be shut down. But I'm curious, if you did not sell those other products, would you have been totally shut down altogether?
We would have been shut down from the first day altogether if we didn't have those other products. Yes.
So it seems like it's kind of it's a good idea, something to think about for others who, if a situation like this happens again, to be able to keep business going.
And that's something we've actually even talked about with our friends that have local tobacco shops here, because they were shut down, is trying to set them up with whatever your local area says. Ours said 25% of your floor space has to be essential items. So whatever your local area says, if it's just that you have to sell some, if it's floor space, if it's pricing, it's not really a bad idea to get something in. I know that there was a city in Kansas that it was just if you had a liquor license. So we had friends with a shop up there who didn't even sell liquor, but they had their license. So they were able to stay open despite being just like every other tobacco shop.
Yeah.
Because they had a liquor license. So it's definitely something to figure out what your city did this time and be prepared for it, because we know that there could be a second wave. And now that we've gone through this, I can't say this for sure, but it kind of feels like it might be easier next time for them to do a shutdown, feeling more comfortable knowing that they've already been through it. They know how to do it.
So I'm curious to know how or what approach you take to gauge sort of your customer like wants in order to bring in the right products, right? I know you kind of settled on the grooming and the beard stuff, but I mean, that's something that's been pretty recent over the last 4 or 5 years of, people really getting the beards, the beard oils, the stylings. I myself have obviously had beard oils and still do. But that's only within the past few years. So, in the course of you being able to offer these different products, how is it that you truly monitor? Is it a gut feeling? Do you just kind of see what's trending? How is it that you monitor that? And then how do you go about bringing those products in? Do you have like a test period or that kind of thing?
Yeah, on a big picture, we go with a 2-month turnover is what we look at. And we value every square foot in our store. So we look at the items that we're selling, and given the square footage that they have, every time that we bring in a new type of product. So like mustache wax or beard oil or anything like that. Right now, some of the new stuff coming in is one of my employees is asked to put in a specialty gaming section. So we will, in inventory, what we will do is we will make a subset for that type of item. And then we will figure out how much space he has, and we'll start tracking how many dollars per square foot is he making off of that. If he's making enough to make it competitive with the other things that we sell, he gains more space until the point where the numbers start switching.
Gotcha.
So, and that's part of why our inventory has switched so often in the past.
Interesting. I really like that approach. So do you weight space based upon where it is? Because there's prime space where people are going to see and interact with earlier. So new space, specialty gaming, you're going to get this space. And so do you weight that based upon where it is?
I don't, largely because the Amanda, who manages our gift shop, really likes to play with both the numbers and moving things. So if something comes in new and it's not working, she will move it and give it another chance somewhere else. But we don't weight it because I honestly don't always know day to day if she's going to get a wild hair and decide something should go somewhere else, and I'm going to let her do it.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, there's the one school of thought of, people are creatures of habit. And if you have a lot of repeat customers, and I've heard this with people who have been running their humidors, and they're like, okay, well, I can't have people in. So they'll tell me, look, I go in, I turn left, it's the fifth box on the left, middle, and it's a red band, right? So they're going in and finding it based upon their memory, right? They could honestly be blindfolded, walk in and pick out the cigar that they've always purchased. So it's really interesting to note that Amanda is moving stuff around, and that it's still kind of producing those type of result or even better results, really.
And we actually do that in our humidor. And when we were closed down, we had people who did exactly that. I have the one with the red band, and it's on the third shelf, and so cigars stay pretty static. But on the other side, so you have to walk through a part of our gift shop to get into our humidor. And that's a big part of why we move things, because we want to remind the people going to the humidor, which are the bulk of our customers, that we have all this different stuff, which means that, this week it might be flashlights there, and next week it'll be coffee.
Yeah, so you just asked an answer, but Fred Rui had a great question there. Number one, gives great praise to your store about a great mix of retail and tobacco. But he asks, is your humidor managed the same way? And so, the humidor is pretty static, which I also find really interesting, because for the people that could effectively blindfolded find their products, so many retailers talk about how, well, what's new drives a lot of the interaction that they ask, right? So I think that that's a great approach, I think, in my opinion, for how you're changing things up as they're getting through to the humidor, because something new will catch their eye.
Yeah. We just want to remind them that there is this stuff over there, and hopefully drag them over so that they can go over to what we call the less smoky side of the store.
And have you seen a lot of conversions? You talked a bit about how people will want to try, but have you seen somebody who really wasn't a cigar smoker but a regular customer convert into either a semi-regular or regular cigar smoker or pipe smoker?
It usually goes the other way around, but yes, definitely. We've got a number of people that have been in for so long getting their shave stuff that they will finally say, I really should try, or someone's coming to town and we're going to celebrate, so can you recommend just two? And a lot of times you'll see them back after that.
Oh, very cool. So you'll see the reverse. You'll see cigar smokers that end up starting to use, soap.
We do a lot more of that. It's easier for them. They don't have to go stop at a Walgreens on their way home. They can go get their shave stuff, the things they actually need. And for grooming items and a lot of the things that we sell, there is a similar sort of, which I didn't know until getting into grooming, but they have the same sort of limited editions and boutique batches and things like that we do in the cigar world. So you get collectors, you get people that travel to go meet their favorite soap maker, you get seasonal scents, you get all of this stuff that it's actually easy to explain one to the other because they're already used to it.
Interesting. Do you bundle those up for like holiday stuff to come get the evergreen soap and a winter smoke? And
absolutely. And we often use cigar boxes to sell our little gift boxes.
And genius. Absolutely. Yeah, my
That's
kids love
awesome.
cigar boxes. They use them for all kinds of things. Yeah, no, I mean, I've been given birthday gifts and Father's Day gifts in old cigar boxes, right? And so open them up and
I
they're
store everything in.
yeah, I've got a lot of them around my house for various things. I really like that though, gift packaging for those products. Sorry, Aaron, go ahead. You had a question.
Oh, no, I was just, it sounds like you have a lot of really great ideas that, I don't know, did you just pick them up from trial and error, or are there certain like online resources or tools that help give you these ideas? I think that a lot of them are great, that a lot of people would want to emulate. So I'm curious.
Really, the biggest thing is listening. Whether it's an employee with an idea or a customer with an idea, we go through a lot of Post-its in this store. And so you will see things, if you go like behind any of our counters, there will be piles of Post-its of things that people have thought of while they were working. And it might be as simple as we sold out of that bay rum scent really fast, to a customer asked about this brand, to I think we should move that tower 6 feet to the left. It looks like there's not enough room for a wheelchair to go through. And so we go through those on a consistent basis and kind of try and figure out wheat from the shaft sort of stuff. You know, what are we doing? And it helps that we're, I guess, a medium-sized store at this point. We always think of ourselves as a small store, but there's 7 to 9 people that work here total, and communication is the biggest thing.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So one avenue I wanted to discuss with you is, because you talked about, you know, other stores, especially when the pandemic hit and closing down. But, you know, if there's a store that's out there that even without the pandemic had wanted to say, let's go ahead and start testing some of this. If someone were to start from square one, what's your advice? You know, where to go, and basically what types of products either to consider or where to go to learn about types of products that you might be able to start testing and experimenting with?
Sure. I think the first thing to do is figure out your area, your customers, as far as what type of product. But if it turns out you're looking for things like we do, we have 2 main things that we do. We source locally and we source online. So online, our 2 biggest places are going to be Etsy has a wholesale website.
Good one.
We prefer to do things that are handmade and or limited, because you won't see as much of it in the catalogs, online, at Target, wherever. So that's kind of our kicker. The minute that Target starts selling something that we've had, we get rid of it. And we've done that often. The second is local. Fair, FAIRE.com is the other place that we use most often for our online sourcing. And if anyone wants to contact me, I've got a list of places as well that we use. So some distributors have things, but honestly, we found that a lot of the cigar distributors, it tends to be more of your gas station sort of stuff, as opposed to what we were looking for, which was more of the small batch things, handmade. Locally, we go to craft shows, we go to farmers markets, we put out calls on social media. If we see somebody who walks into our store and has something we like, we ask them where they got it. We ask them if they make it. We found a leather worker by going to a local leather shop and saying, do you know anyone who makes? Some of the advantages that have come out of this are we do sell things that other people haven't found. We have people that are more willing to make us a priority, I guess. For example, we've got one company that is now distributed nationally, but it was our buyer who found them a distributor and helped them grow and got them out there and got them a national rep because she believed in them so much. And because of that, we know that they're always going to be loyal to us as well. So when they have a product, we never have to wait. When there's a new scent, we get to test it. It's really nice to be in there. We had the leather person that we brought in. We have a couple of other people, but one of them has been great with every time she brings something in, we'll be like, all right, now do you think you could make? You know, people have been asking about a DOP kit that's just a little bit bigger, or they want a roll-up pipe kit that has a tie but also has one zipper and one snap on the inside. What can you do? And it's amazing to be able to work directly with these people and get those things done.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Do you get a lot of requests for like really super special stuff like that? And if so, how often are you able to meet those special requests?
If it's totally a one-off, we actually send them directly to the artist. We've just basically decided that time and money wise, it is better for us to have a better relationship with the artist than to try and get in the middle of that. So every once in a while, we'll send them an entire purchase that they get the whole payment for it, but they have to do some specialty work on it. And then I know that when people call them and say, I need a standard DOP kit, they're going to send them to us. Because that's more what we're interested in, unless it's something I think we can sell a number of.
And then from the customer perspective, that's so important because it makes the customer feel like you really care, and you really are just looking out for them. And then the customer remembers that. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, we'll take a few dollars lost to make everybody happy and get through it a little bit better.
That's a good investment for the future relationship. The one thing that's really interesting about this is we've heard a lot about the importance of, in the cigar world, especially in light of, fortunately the trade show having to be canceled this year, but how important the relationship is and the relationship nurturing between retailer and manufacturer and your vendor, right? And how that relationship works for, planning obviously what you're going to be doing throughout the year and the facings and everything else. But it's, that really transcends product type, right? And you're taking a look at your relationships with your vendors right now and how that actually enables you to be more hyper specialized, which is more direct to consumer, which allows you obviously to bring more consumers back to your store. And what I really like about what your approach has been about is your store has a specific identity, and you realize that when you're looking at, okay, premium tobacco is about this whole other experience. And really the way that you've described your shop on the other side of things is exactly the same thing, is an exactly the same type of experience, just with different product offerings. And so I think that potentially when someone else is looking at it, that I think that same idea, I think that's kind of the idea, right? Is what is sort of the identity of your store as it relates to your customers? So therefore, if you are going to diversify, what products make sense? Because maybe beard oil and beard competitions is not going to be the right thing because you have a lot of freshly shaved faces, or it might be a completely different, kind of demographic group that you're working with there. So I really like that idea as far as that aspect of the relationship between you, vendor, and consumer, and how that all relates to the products that you're selling.
And there are some, like I know that there are places that are really, we sell some coffee, mostly what we have roasted for us, and we sell a decent amount, but there are cigar shops that are entire coffee shops, which I think is awesome. There's ones that have a full bar or that are also a pool hall. It really does depend on who your customer is and where your locality is. So,
yeah.
And so how often do you bring in new products to test?
To test, probably a few times a month, maybe even more.
Wow, that often, huh?
Yes. They don't have the same cycle that we have with cigars because there is not, for our products, there's not one show. There's a clothing show where the hat people go, but hats are like 2% of this huge show that's mostly geared towards women. There are shows for stylists, but 2% is the barber items and the rest is for women. So we don't have the same cycle of things coming out, which means at any given time, anything could be out. So we have to kind of, we don't have that centralized, let me go learn what's new and see things, and everyone has timed their releases around a certain date.
And what percentage, if I don't even know if you know this, but off the top of your head, what percentage of new products that you bring in end up having maintaining shelf space in your shop for probably more than a few months, and end up kind of being something that's there for at least a year or so?
It's a guess, but I think probably 80 to 85% stick around.
Wow.
That's great.
That said, there's some of them that we will keep a product line, but drop a couple of cents. So when we bring things in, our goal is always 3 to 5 is what we bring in to start with. We do the same with cigars. We want enough that we can make a grouping, that there's a brand together, but not so many that it's overwhelming, and not so few that you miss them completely. So we bring in 3 to 5 items of any new product line. And if it just tanks, it all goes right in the sale bin, or we donate it. If it does well, we bring in more until we start seeing diminishing returns.
And how often is it something that's a brand new type of product? So you mentioned specialty gaming, and that's something I would, I haven't really heard a whole lot about, and I would kind of be interested in kind of learning more about. But how often is it something along those lines, as opposed to here's a new type of soap, here's a new beard oil, here's a new straight razor, here's a new hat line, or something along those lines, to where you have a little bit more of a consumer education aspect to it?
For us, it's probably about once every year and a half. The last big new thing that came in was flashlights.
Oh, interesting.
Which were a ridiculous surprise. We talked to a company that we liked. We brought in a couple of flashlights, and the next thing we knew, we kept selling out of flashlights, and our regular customers all had multiple flashlights. I have a flashlight upstairs and a flashlight downstairs in my house. It didn't occur to me that people needed 8 flashlights. So apparently they do. They need them in every seat of their car, and they need them in every room of their house. And if there's one that has a magnet, it has to come home also with them. So yes, flashlights have been ridiculously large for us.
Never would have thought. What kind of flashlights are these? I mean,
we sell Nebo. It's NEBO, Nebo flashlights.
Nebo, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, you can never have enough flashlights, as Fred really says. That's very true. That's very true. I think this year of all years has proven the fact that you need at least a dozen flashlights at any given time.
The good news is our store never has a power outage issue. We have enough flashlights to get through. We actually did a whole event with just flashlights once. And our power went out, and we ran the event with just flashlights for light.
That's great. Which is funny, because what people don't know is that as we were just about ready to kick this off, your power went out and came right back on before we went live. I don't know if you could have connected to the internet with a flashlight in order to do the show, but nevertheless, if you had, it might solve a lot of people's problems.
The flashlight. I'll get to work on that
one. That's good stuff. Sorry, Erin, did you have something?
So as you're getting all these new products in all the time, are there any specific marketing channels that you found are the best ways to let customers know? Is it just word of mouth, or email, or social media, or is it a combination, or are there specific ones that you feel have worked really well for you?
That's a good question. One of my biggest challenges coming into this business is my background is actually internet sales. And so I worked for many years in corporate internet, and came here where you can't mention tobacco online. Yeah. There's so many of the things that I knew and that I was used to were just unavailable to me. Right. And so we didn't do a whole lot other than word of mouth until, I think it was about 6 years ago, where we did minor gift items on Google advertising, and they rejected a cigar scented beard oil because of the scent. And I even talked to a real person about how there's no cigar in this. You can't smoke it. It's not a tobacco. It's literally just an oil that somebody thought smelled like a cigar. And they wouldn't let me pay them to advertise this beard oil.
Wow. So
at that point, we actually took our store we have 2 addresses because we're one front door, but we're 2 segments of a strip mall. So we took one of the addresses and we called it the gift shop, and we made it its own website, and there's no tobacco on that site. So we do now do social media. We do Instagram, we do ads on Google. We do ads on Facebook for that area, as well as a lot of meetups. Those have actually been very, very good for us. And nice. For all of that, we just reference our gift website instead, which doesn't mention tobacco other than on the shipping page where it does say, when we ship you stuff, it's going to smell like tobacco.
But apparently the Google gods and the Facebook fairies don't necessarily go all the way into the shipping page to find that out, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we won't tell anyone.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't think they're calling this site for that either, so they don't too intently on that one. Yeah, it's funny. I have a funny story that's kind of related to that, but I mean, I was out in Ocean City, Maryland last weekend with a friend of mine, and this is, I don't know, 10:30 at night, walking along the boardwalk. We're outside. There's not a lot of people, but I mean, it's the first weekend that people have been allowed. And I passed by probably 4 or 5 people that were either smoking or vaping. And no issue, whatever else. And I thought, oh, hey, you know what? I actually have just a little cigar with me right now. I'll light it up as we're walking for the next 5 minutes or so. So I light it up, and I am just about down to the end of it. And a cop on a bike rolls up next to me and asks me to sit down. And I was like, wait, what? He said, yeah, can you have a seat for me? And he said, you're not supposed to smoke it. And as soon as he said that, I knew what was coming. But I literally had to sit down on a bench, and I had 3 bike cops surrounded me, and I was issued a citation for $50 for smoking on the boardwalk. Yeah. And so they have these little signs that are about this big, and it says no smoking. It doesn't say you're going to get a fine, but it says no smoking. So yeah, so I had a good laugh about that later on. I guess, what else are you going to do about it? But so it's really interesting, kind of, the pendulum and how far it goes on certain things, whether it's, Google ads or us not being able to promote the trade show on Facebook, for example, because it's a tobacco event, even though it's a closed event, or walking outside in the open air and getting a $50 fine for having and enjoying a cigar. So, so it's really interesting though that because that was a follow-up question I was going to have, but you answered it, is being able to have that difference in terms of what you offer and completely segregating that opens you up to a whole wide world of marketing and being able to reach people and reaching different audiences that you wouldn't otherwise be able to if you are strictly just tobacco. So I think that's a really interesting point there, that if you have enough products, separate those out, because they're different audiences sometimes, but it allows you to do more to get people into your non-tobacco products to see them through various advertising and online. And that's a really good tip, I think.
Yeah.
That was the majority of mine, other than the fact I did have a question for you, is not outside the technical stuff. Has there been a favorite product of yours that you really brought in and you're like, wow, this is fantastic, I never would have thought about this, and it's just gone gangbusters? And is there one that surprised you where you thought, I'm not really sure what this product is, and maybe one of your employees recommended it, and it ended up becoming wildly popular? I mean, flashlights is probably one of them, but
flashlights is definitely a big thing for us, because when I was running the gift side without Amanda, I never brought in flashlights. It never occurred to me. So yeah, that would be our big holy cow, this worked well. Something that didn't work well that we found odd was shave oil. Given every other shave item that we sell, we tried hard for almost 2 years to sell shave oils. And it just recently, in the past few months, people have started asking for them, but we got rid of them 3 years ago.
Really? You were way too ahead of your time then.
Apparently. Oddly, if you see shave oil in a local store, women, great for shaving your legs. Amazing for shaving your legs. But
nice.
Yeah, we couldn't sell it. So
interesting. Very interesting. And now they're starting to ask for it. Are you thinking about bringing it back?
Ask for it. So, yep. So now we're bringing it in slowly. We just have like 2 or 3 on the shelf, though. We're not going to bring in everyone's because there's not enough demand yet. But yeah, that's part of why you have to do that constant reevaluating of what's on the shelf and what's going and what's not. And one of the harder things for me, and it helps to have somebody else who is specializing in that, was letting go of things that I liked.
Yeah.
I have the same trouble with cigars. I hate having to stop selling a cigar that I'm the only one that's smoking it. But that doesn't do anything for the bottom line if I'm smoking the inventory and nobody else is buying it.
Yeah, you're smoking all your profits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was like, it's like me. I tell my wife, keep me away from the store because I'm going to eat all the cakes. So I'm going to eat all the profits. Well, so I did have a question that, I talked to you about this a little bit. Christian, your husband, is he loves food, I think, like I do, right? And so I was just wondering if there was a particular meal that you guys have had over the past couple of months in quarantine that's really stood out to you, or basically as you were able to get out of quarantine, what was the first meal that you guys went and were able to eat at a restaurant?
Yeah, the first thing we did, we actually went out for our son's birthday. It's called Farmer's Gastropub, which is a British pub in town, one of our favorite local restaurants. And they had separated people so much that we were literally the only people in the room, and put his mom down the table. So she was still technically socially distanced from us, but in the room and having dinner with us. Exactly. And we had mushroom soup and pig ear tacos. It was wonderful.
Pig ear, that sounds delicious.
Pig ear tacos. Yes, he makes a great pig ear taco.
That sounds delicious. Yeah, I having gone through culinary school, we definitely tried a lot of different pig stuff. I've had pig's feet and ears, and
I have pig's feet in the fridge right now because Christian is convinced that he needs to learn how to cook pig's feet. So
you can learn how to cook it. I tried several times to enjoy pig's feet. I never could.
No, me either. He's on his own for that one.
Yeah. Tell him good luck. If he enjoys it, then we'll talk to him. I think there's no shortage of pig feet that he'll be able to have for himself.
Yeah.
But cow tongue, on the other hand, when that's cooked properly, especially braised over a long period of time, makes great shredded, cow tongue tacos. Beef tongue is really good. I don't know if you froze or if I just disgusted you there, but you froze up, so hopefully that wasn't too much. I'll ask you then, Aaron, and hopefully Jessica's feed comes back. For you, anything fun or interesting that you have now as we've started to open up, or if you've gone out?
I mean, before all this, I'll be honest, I have this huge fridge and I wasn't cooking anything. I was going out almost like every night. And since March, maybe late March, I like changed up my diet. I cut out refined sugars and I've cooked everything, and I've not been out to eat since. And now, because I am so in this health kind of zone, like with my food, I don't know. I mean, I do want to support local business, but I'm afraid that, like, when I go out, I have no idea what's in it. Whereas when I'm cooking everything, I know what's in it. So, and I'm really enjoying cooking more and more. So I kind of want to just keep going with that.
Yeah, generally, if you're going out, the reason why it always tastes better is because there's a lot more things in there that probably aren't as good for you. So
right.
that's
Plus, it's always nice, I will go out at some point because, it gets tiring cooking for yourself all the time. And sometimes it's just nice to sit down and be waited on and taken care of.
Yeah.
So I will eventually.
That's the other trick too. Well, it looks like Jessica's dropped off, but we were kind of coming up on our hour anyway. We would like to thank her for joining us. Oh, wait, she's able to come back. We have her back.
Yay!
She's
Hello.
Back.
Everything again. Sorry.
That's Daddy. No, that's all good. That's all good. As I said, I don't know if I disgusted you with the beef tongue talk or not because it just froze as soon as I said that.
I've crack-potted beef tongue too. We're good.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So then I will ask, I guess, probably the last question. What has been one of your most memorable cigar smoking experiences? I would say recently, you were kind of more memorable cigar smoking experiences recently, and that could be the last month or the last year or so.
Oh, all right. Probably the first one that I went to outside of our store. We had a friend that had us over for barbecue and cigars after the quarantine was lifted a little bit. So it was the first time that we'd been to anyone's place, and sat with a good friend and smoked a very nice Davidoff and had some very nice steak. And it was just the perfect weather, perfect porch, perfect company. So most recently, that was probably my nicest smoke.
Very nice. Yeah. Yeah, I often tell my friends, because people oftentimes will enjoy a cigar with a drink or whatever, but if you've never had a cigar and enjoyed a cigar with a meal, you're very much missing out, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Always a good, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Well, thank you very much. A lot of really great takeaways here that I really hope that a lot of our retailers can kind of glean some insights. And reach out. We can get you some of those resources that Jessica talked about if you're interested in exploring some of these product lines. Jessica, thank you very much for joining us. Please stay safe and healthy there. And look forward to seeing you and Christian sometime in hopefully the very, very near future. But my best to you and your family, and be well. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Stay safe, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Join us tomorrow. Josh Habersky will be on with Gabby Caffrey from Caffey Cigars, as well as the Boutique Cigar Association. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.